The New Testament has numerous examples of empathy, especially throughout the four Gospels where Jesus is performing miracles. These passages have taught me that empathy can take many forms. For example, in John 2:1-11, Jesus is at a wedding. It says, "The next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him that they have no more wine. 'Dear woman, that's not our problem,' Jesus replied. 'My time has not yet come.' But his mother told the servants, 'Do whatever he tells you.' Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, 'Fill the water jars with water.' When the jars had been filled, he said, 'Now dip some out and take it to the master of the ceremonies.' So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of the ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, although the servants who served it knew, he called the bridegroom over. 'A host always serves the best wine first,' he said. 'Then, when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now.' This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The interesting thing here is that he acknowledges, he says, 'Woman, this is not our problem,' or 'Dear woman, this is not our problem,' addressing his mother, recognizing that this isn't their dilemma, but yet he has empathy because he knows that by them not having wine, adequate provisions for the wedding, it could cause major embarrassment for this family, and that's no way to start off a new marriage like this. And so from empathy, he decides to go ahead and do what his mother asked to help them out with it. And also we see Mary's empathy, that she saw the problem and desired to do something to relieve the situation before it became a big embarrassment for the family and a hard humiliation, public humiliation for them, basically. So we also see empathy in Mark 1:40-45, where this tells of how Jesus heals a man who is suffering from leprosy. It says in Mark 1:40-45, a man with leprosy came excuse me, and knelt in front of Jesus, begging to be healed. 'If you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean,' he said. Moved with compassion, Jesus reached out and touched him. 'I am willing,' he said, 'be healed.' Instantly the leprosy disappeared and the man was healed. Then Jesus sent him on his way with a stern warning, 'Don't tell anyone about this. Instead, go to the priest and let him examine you. Take along the offering required in the law of Moses for those who have been healed of leprosy. This will be a public testimony that you have been cleansed.' But the man went and spread the word, proclaiming to everyone what had happened. As a result, large crowds soon surrounded Jesus, and he couldn't publicly enter a town anywhere. He had to stay out in the secluded places, but people from everywhere kept coming to him. So we see here that he had empathy for the man because the man was coming with his dilemma. His dilemma was he had leprosy, a very harsh disease, a very fatal disease over time, but a very drawn out, painful way to suffer and eventually die and have complications from it. So the man came to him with his dilemma. And it says in verse 41, moved with compassion, Jesus reached out and touched him. So Jesus had empathy for this man and healed him from his leprosy. Then another example of empathy is one that John records of future events. In Revelation 21:4, it lets us know that God, that there will come a day where God will wipe away our tears. And so God has God's redemption from the curse that is on all of creation is now in effect here in Revelation, and it says that on that day that's the final tears we'll ever have, and he has empathy for his children that he loves, and that he's going to wipe away our tear. There'll be no more death and mourning and crying. So that's the final, excuse me, I didn't change my slide there. So now we can see that that's the final tear that will cry, and he wipes it away, and that's empathy, that he gives us compassion to move and do something about the pain that we have felt. Okay, so my faith impacts my empathy because Jesus is my example. We see in the picture that he does servant leadership. He leads by example, and that he is washing their feet. So he is the example that we are to follow. And in empathy, he's also a good example to follow. He shows me how to use what I've been blessed with to help others, whether that's resources, like when he helped at the wedding, or being with those who are ill and helping if I'm able to, or just being with someone in their sorrow. Ultimately, he redeems all of creation and wipes away that final tear, but I'm able to learn from his example and offer empathy to hurting people. Won't be quite as efficient as he wipes away their final tear, but I can still sit with them in their sorrow. Now, neuroscience, remember to keep changing that. Neuroscience also impacts how I understand biblical empathy. For example, mirror neurons enable us to perceive and mimic the emotions expressed on another person's face. The CD and X suggest mimicry is also evident very early in development. Infants will imitate expressions and actions made by an experimenter within mere hours after birth, and by 6 weeks they perform the more complicated tasks of imitating based on representation stored in memory. Infants also cry in response to other infants' distress. Does this mean that infants possess rudimentary empathetic-like responses? Meltzoff and colleagues have proposed that the imitative abilities of infants are supported by an innate system whereby seen actions, that is, performed by others, are matched with felt actions, performed by oneself, allowing infants to map others' behavior into their own mental representation and thus infer others' internal states through analogy to the self. Infants imbue the acts of others with felt meaning because others are intrinsically recognized as like me. Although the evidence for this approach has been demonstrated primarily with regard to simple actions, it has been extended conceptually to account for the development of understanding others' intentions and emotions. So we see that God created us in a wonderful way where we have mirror neurons that even from birth we're already picking up on others' emotions and sensing what they're feeling, and that's an amazing thing. Scripture indicates that we are created in God's image, Genesis 1:27, to be in community just like He is in community. So He designed us with these mirror neurons so that we can weep with those who weep and laugh with those who laugh, as we see in Romans 12:15. So in conclusion, the Bible shares a lot about empathy. Jesus lived out many examples during his time on earth. Likewise, the authors record a wide variety of ways we can learn to be empathetic toward others. And since God has instructed us to love Him and love other people, as we see in Matthew 22:37 through 40, He equipped us with these mirror neurons in order to be able to carry that out.